Chaplain Lindsey Williams has been an ordained Baptist minister for 28 years. He spent 3 years working with and rubbing shoulders with some of the world's elite oil executives. He lived with them. He attended their board meetings. Lindsey Williams is truly inside with the insiders. His latest presentation on DVD, Secrets of the Elite, contains 3 hours of information, including divisions among the elite, the fate of the U.S. dollar, and a whole lot more. He joins us every month to bring us the latest information on globalist strategies and activities. Chaplain Lindsey Williams, welcome back to the Global Freedom Report. How are you, Lindsey?
What a privilege it is to be back with you today, Brett. My goodness, there's so much going on out there. We never lack anything to talk about. The modern-day world is really moving fast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an ancient Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times. I think we do. Do you ever find yourself suspected of complicity with the globalist agenda? I mean, after all, you are effectively an insider when it comes to the global elite. Do people ever suspect you of being, a double agent?
Oh, positively. In fact, that question is asked me oftentimes on radio shows. Do you think that they're giving you information so that you can give it out? Well, sure. Sometimes they do. We have to remember, Brett, that one of the facets of the, if I could say there's such a thing as a morality to the elite, or if I could say that they have any personal codes of ethics, I would say that there's one thing about that code of ethics that I learned when I lived with the elite for 3 years' time, and that is they must tell the world everything they're going to do before they do it. And I think they oftentimes use me as a springboard because they know that I'm literally in touch with millions of people every week, and they'll give me information because they feel an obligation to tell the world what they're going to do before they do it. Yeah, you're exactly right. I think they do.
Well, now, considering that, do you ever receive threats, or do people seek to take out their anger and frustration about the globalist agenda on you? I mean, frequently we see that they bite the messenger. In this case, you're the messenger. Do you ever have repercussions as a result?
Oh, positively. I've lived with these people for 3 years. Sat across the dinner table from them, sat in their board meetings. It changed my life. I've kept in touch with them for 35 years. They're now in their 70s and 80s. I know things that I don't dare say. You did hear me correctly. There are certain things that I just positively do not say. And 2 times in these 35 years, I've had one of the elite call me on the phone and say, Chaplain Williams, you have gone too far. You can't say that. And you remember 3.5 years ago, they required me to shut down my website, which was getting massive attention. And I did, because I wanted to be able to have a happy home. And what they said they wanted to do was not too pleasant. But yes, there are certain things that I know I can't say, but yet on the other hand, Brent, in 35 years, I have never had the elite to tell me anything that it didn't happen exactly like they said it was going to happen. And of course now, these people are retired in their 70s and 80s, have a family themselves. They're very concerned about their children, whom they have put out there into this world that they helped to create. And believe it or not, I'm almost like a confessional to them sometimes. I've had numerous conversations recently where they said certain things to me, and I like, if I possibly can, to help the world spare their dinner table and to spare themselves great heartaches by letting them know exactly what the elite are doing next, Brent.
Well, now, the people that you communicate with, the ordinary people, not the elite, do they ever come back at you like biting the messenger's hand or something? You're telling them about these things that are going to happen. Do they ever blame you?
Back 35 years ago when I wrote my book, Energy Crisis, I had people call on radio talk shows that I was on where the talk show host was taking callers. And they would call in and just rake me over the coals, call me every name except Christian. And I used to get this on a regular basis. Within the past, I would say 2 years, I can only think of one time that I have had a caller that called in and said, Chaplain, you this, and this, and the talk show host cut him off very readily. I think, Brent, people are finally beginning to wise up to the fact that what I said 35 years ago literally is so. It's not a figment of the imagination. And as a result, I'm amazed how many people today really honestly believe that the New World Order is a secretive group of a handful of people who control the world, and I think people are beginning to come to that realization today.
We have a caller, Joe, calling in from Arkansas. Joe, welcome to the show. You're on the air with Chaplain Lindsey Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Brent. First of all, I want to tell you that you're coming in loud and clear on 9350 shortwave here in northwest Arkansas.
Fantastic.
And I have a question for Chaplain Williams, and that's this. About 3 weeks ago, I got a item in the mail from a man who was trying to get me to subscribe to his financial advice newsletter. And what he said was that for about the last 8 years, oil companies have been developing huge deposits of shale oil in various parts of the country, various places around the United States. And he said that early next year, after December of this year, that oil is going to start to come on the market in a big-time way, and that the American economy is going to be tremendously revived with money from these oil wells. And I want to ask you, Chaplain Williams, is this man's claim? Is there any truth to this man's claims, as far as you know, or is he kind of just making false claims, or exaggerating, or claiming something that's not true, or what? What would you have to say about that?
No. What this gentleman is saying very well could be true. And you're right. The Bakken Field in North South Dakota, Montana, there is a monstrous oil pool on the north slope of Alaska that they're already drilling into right now, and they'll find a way to get that oil out. There, under Denver, Colorado, is a major oil field that they've not even produced yet. Many of the oil shales, as you have mentioned, there's a very good possibility they'll be brought online. So, yes, there is some credence to what this person has said.
Okay, thank you very much.
Joe. Thanks much. Appreciate the call. Since we spoke last month, Lindsey, developments in Syria have progressed quite a bit. Most notably, Russia, which had previously expressed unwavering support for Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian government, has pulled its warships and arms supplies out of Syria. Why did Russia do this? Is there something else going on that precipitated such a move?
There was definitely something behind the scenes. I have asked my sources, and they just merely said they did it for Russia to do what they did. This is unprecedented. I mean, Russia has not flexed its muscles since the Iron Curtain came down. And now for Russia to step in and say, we will stand behind Syria and then back out, I'm sure, as people have often at times asked me, they said, well, do the elite control Russia? Do they control China? My answer is always yes. And this is a good example of how the elite undoubtedly pulled some strings to it, that Russia backed off from Syria. And now, of course, I'm sure just within the past week you have caught what's happening in Jordan. Once Syria is taken over and Assad is out, Jordan is next. And the Muslim Brotherhood has given the ultimatum to King Abdullah of Jordan that by October the 1st, he must meet their demands, basically accept the Muslim Brotherhood form of government, or he's gone. I mean, this whole thing is taking place exactly as the elite told me a year and a half ago, when I was utterly startled after what took place in Egypt and in Libya. And I went to my elite friend and I said, what is happening in the Middle East? He told me everything that will take place for the next 2 to 3 years. I produced a DVD series entitled The Middle East, The Rest of the Story, which is still in the process of taking place just as they told me it would back in those days. And all of this is definitely precipitated by the elite.
Now, when you raise Jordan, I mean, Jordan is one of the, I believe Jordan is still a U.S. ally.
Well, Egypt was too. In fact, we didn't have a better ally than Mubarak. And Gaddafi had even stood on our side in Libya. We are known for overthrowing our allies for the purpose of being able to accomplish what they want. And the reason for all of this is taking the price of crude oil to $150 a barrel. And I have been saying for the past year to a year and a half that I was told by my elite friends they wanted crude oil up to that price. And if they create enough chaos in the Middle East, now watch out. I have predicted this for a year and a half. Retired General Wesley Clark said it. You must go on YouTube and look at retired General Wesley Clark's presentation. It's only about 4 to 5 minutes long. It is a must. He said that the last of the nations in the Middle East that will be overthrown. Did you hear that? You're hearing it from me because my elitist friend gave it to me. The last of the nations in the Middle East will be overthrown will be Saudi Arabia. You did hear me correctly. Wesley Clark also got it from the State Department. I did not even know he had made the statement. I saw his DVD presentation. I was appalled because my elite friend said the same thing. It will create such chaos in the Middle East that the price of crude oil will be where they want it. Then they will bring in these other oil fields, which your earlier caller a few moments ago mentioned, Brent. They'll bring in those oil fields because they'll then have the price of crude oil at $150 a barrel, $5 and $6 a gallon for gas pump, exactly where they want it.
I still find it fascinating that Russia would, because that politically, I mean, Russia came out and made a public statement. We will stand by our ally Syria. Real public statement. And then to back out, I can't even begin to imagine what went on behind the scenes to make Russia do that. Recently, Syrian insurgents bombed a security building in Damascus. Are these the same U.S.-funded terrorists, or are they some other group?
The elite work through our State Department. Our State Department, you heard me correctly, you must go to YouTube and view retired General Wesley Clark's presentation. Our State Department are told what to do by the elite, whom I knew years ago, whom I still have contact with. In turn, the State Department funds, you heard me exactly, our State Department funds all of this terrorism that's going on in the Middle East. And every bit of it is done by design, planned behind closed doors a long time before they ever did it.
But are there, I guess what I'm trying to determine is, are there different groups participating in the civil war in Syria, if we can call it a civil war, on each side of the conflict, or is it just plain the elite against Assad? Is it as simple as that, or do we have the Al-Qaeda bunch of people, the Muslim Brotherhood bunch of people, the U.S.-backed people, the people being supported by Russia on the other side? I mean, are there different groups, or does it really boil down to the Assad regime and the elite rebels?
You have to, first of all, we have to understand why all this is being done. Without understanding the motivation force behind it all, you'll never understand what either the State Department or the Assad or any of the Muslim Brotherhood groups are doing. Every bit of this is intentionally created chaos for the purpose of destroying the ability of the oil fields and others in the Middle East. Intentional destruction, the intentional chaos for the purpose of getting things to the place that are going on many new oil fields. You must. I mean, every bit of this is revealed step by step in my presentation that I did about a year and a half ago entitled The Middle East, the Rest of the Story. When we understand that this is solely for the purpose of creating chaos. Now, please, there's a very startling statement here that I'm going to make at this point. The New World Order, this basically is the elite that I talk about all the time. The New World Order, please, catch this carefully. Nobody in the New World Order, to my knowledge, that I've ever met is either a communist or a Muslim. They are using both the communists and the Muslims of the world, and whenever they get through with them, they're going to throw them out with the bathwater. Believe me. They are not communists, they are not Muslim, they are free enterprise capitalists, every one of the New World Orders that I've ever met or I communicate with, And when they get through using these groups as pawns in the game, it's all over for them. They only use them to create what they want.
Now, we talked about Russia. What about China? I mean, China, I just can't believe that China would be that easy to manipulate. Isn't China sitting staunchly defending and supporting Assad?
China is not that easy to manipulate, but they still do. They do it in a little bit different method than what they would the United States of America. But yet, on the other hand, the elite control China and Russia as well as they do the United States of America. I know it's very difficult for people to understand this, and until you completely understand the mindset of the elite, as I have rubbed shoulders with these people for 35 years, until you understand their mindset, it's almost impossible to understand how they're able to do some of the things they do. But they do it, and it is a new world order. It is a world order. It is new, and they will bring it in full force at some point in the very near future. And Brent, some point in the program today, I hope you'll let me talk about what the Federal Reserve did on September the 13th, because it has never taken place before in the history of the world with any nation, and it is devastating, and it is one of the methods of the New World Order of doing what they want to do in the United States of America.
Just before we do that, let me ask you about Prudhoe Bay. We've talked about this before, the Liberty rig in Prudhoe Bay, the work stoppage on that rig. What does that have to do with the Syrian conflict? How do the two relate?
Syria and Mr. Assad has set the elite back approximately 6 months. They thought that they would be able to depose him just like they did Mubarak in Egypt. Then they came around to Gaddafi in Libya, and he didn't go quite as easy as Mubarak did in Egypt. Then they got to Syria, and Assad has been able to hold off for the longest. I don't think he'll hold off much longer at all. Then next it'll be Jordan. Mark my words, that's the next country that's going to go. And after that, we have maybe 2 other countries and then Saudi Arabia. Every bit of this fits into the plan, but they will not start the Liberty rig at Prudhoe Bay drilling again until they see that they can create enough chaos in the Middle East to start those crude oil prices up close to $150 a barrel. That's the reason they have stopped drilling temporarily.
And how do the events in Syria relate to the timing of a global financial collapse? Is that all interacted?
Yes, somewhat. Not near as much. You see, everything had to happen according to some sort of a program. First of all, they must get the price of crude oil to $150 a barrel. In order to do this, they had to create the chaos in the Middle East. Then they wanted to bring in other things, such as they did on September the 13th of 2012 with the Federal Reserve. All of this was supposed to dovetail together in order to be able to bring about a proposed possible date for the financial worldwide collapse. I did not say it's going to take place in a month or 2 months from now, but at least when they put these things in order, they will be able to more know an exact time that they want to bring about a collapse of the euro, a collapse of the dollar, and a collapse of the other currencies of the world.
All right, let's talk the Federal Reserve September 13th. What happened?
The Federal Reserve, Mr. Ben Bernanke, made a statement on September the 13th of 2012. Nothing like this has ever been done in the history of the world. The average American has not the slightest idea of the consequences of it. The Federal Reserve announced that it will purchase $40 billion. Now, you heard me correctly, not trillion, not billion, $40 billion in mortgage-backed securities and treasuries each month indefinitely. September, October, November, December, January, indefinitely. $40 billion. Well, I heard this. I knew there was more to it than met the eye. And I immediately knew what to do. Picked up the phone, called my elite friend, and I said, I need some answers. Well, he didn't hesitate at all. And so I'll give you the questions I asked. Please, you must have pen and paper right now. This will affect your dinner table. It is going to impact your household as nothing has in years and years and years. I asked my elite friend, I said, where will the Federal Reserve get $40 billion a month? Indefinitely. And immediately he said, with no hesitation whatsoever, he said, Chaplain, thin air. Folks, did you catch that? $30 billion out of thin air. Now, the Federal Reserve, everyone out in the audience of Global Freedom Report, the Federal Reserve purchased your house. Did you hear that? The Federal Reserve purchased your house, if it has a mortgage on it. They purchased it on September the 13th of 2012. It's no longer owned by Chase or Citibank or Bank of America or Goldman Sachs or Wells Fargo, where you went to get your loan from Fannie or Freddie. No, they don't own it any longer. The Federal Reserve now owns your house mortgage, whether it be toxic or whether it be on time, and every month they purchase $40 billion. Definitely. I said, where do they get the money? He said, out of thin air. I said, wait a minute. Economy in the condition it's in, housing market in shambles, $16 trillion of national debt. I said, they can't do this. He said, Chaplain, out of thin air. And what are they buying? They're buying mortgage-backed securities. In other words, in short, they bought your house, the shopping center down the road. They bought the small business that has a loan, and they used the land or their building as security for that loan. Security backed by a mortgage. The Federal Reserve bought your house on September the 13th, and they'll do it every month. $40 billion indefinitely. Now, I'm going to make a statement. This, I hope, will shake you. You must look at this. You must read the newsletters. You're going to see this in the newsletters 2 to 4 months from now. Nobody right now, I've only seen one newsletter so far that's picked up on this because they didn't make the phone call that I made. The elite, the Federal Reserve, will own every piece of mortgaged real estate in the United States of America before this is over. $40 billion every month indefinitely. Every piece of mortgage real estate in the United States of America, Brent.
Well, you said before this is over. This is never over. This is $40 billion every month. So this is never over.
So I asked my elite friend the next question. And if you think the first answer was startling, I hope you're not only sitting down, but you are grasping very firmly your chair. I asked my elite friend, I said, what will the Federal Reserve do with $40 billion of mortgages, your house, every month? I said, what are they going to do with that $40 billion worth of mortgages? Now, folks, you worked hard for your house. Please, understand what I'm saying. You, blood, sweat, and tears. You worked from 9 till 5. You worked all week long. You probably worked on 2 jobs. You barely can afford to put clothes on your family's back and at the same time buy groceries and make that mortgage. You worked. What did the elite do in order to own your house? They reached up in thin air and pulled out nothing and created $40 billion and bought from the lending institution that you had your house mortgaged with. They bought that mortgage, and I asked my elite friend, I said, what are the elite going to do with these $40 billion worth of mortgages every month? And he said it very quickly. He didn't hesitate. He said they're going to buy derivatives with it. Folks, did you hear this? This has never been done.
And folks, if you've been following the Global Elite updates, go back a couple of months. We were talking about derivatives and the derivative market. Oh, my. Put the pieces together. Was there ever a time that you had issues of conscience around, well, I'm a minister, I'm a pastor, I'm a preacher of the Word of God, and these people, some of the things that they're doing are just plain evil. Did you ever have personal conflicts, issues of conscience at dealing with these people in the first place?
Quite to the contrary. In fact, that's the very reason that I stay in touch with them, contact them, call them on a regular basis, tell things that they tell me. Because, Brent, it gives me a marvelous opportunity to be able to tell these people that Jesus Christ died for them on the cross, that salvation can be theirs, that they don't have to go to hell, they can go to heaven, that they can have forgiveness of sin. And, oh, my gracious, what an opportunity. I was on their oil field. They were not in my church, and I was kind of like a mascot. So as a result, I still have an opportunity to deal with these people in a manner that gives me a marvelous opportunity to do things. But, Brent, this individual told me about what the Federal Reserve did. We don't need all the rest of the time we've got in this program, so you just tell me how much more I can say. I have some things here that the people think they were holding on to their chair and gripping it and haven't stepped up and down yet. This is only a portion of what this man told me.
Well, I do have a few other things I want to ask you, but let me first off ask you the question I'm asking all the listeners today. And by the way, the rest of you out there, please give us your answers, either through the chat room or give us a call and give us your answers. Do you believe there will be a stock market crash or other economic collapse before the 2012 U.S. elections, specifically before the elections? Lindsey, do you have any insight into that?
No, there will not be. I say it very emphatically. The crash is going to take place. It is not going to take place in the next month, 2 months. Probably won't take place in the next 3 months. And all of this has to do, basically, with, it's been set up now, as I said, September the 13th, with what the Federal Reserve did. And whenever I give you the rest of what I'm about to say here, you'll understand the timetable almost to the month as to when the crash will take place. They have laid it out in such a manner that anybody who will watch the signs can easily know a few months in advance before the dollar completely collapses.
Well, and now there's been talk that Obama, if he believes he's going to lose, is going to precipitate some kind of false flag event that would cause an economic collapse. Do you have any further insights into the presidential elections that are just over 5 weeks away?
You've heard me say before on your program, Brent, that the elite are very upset at Mr. Obama. If the older elite had their way, he will not get back in as president. He's done many things that they don't like, and especially that pipeline across Canada. As a result, it will be Obama himself who creates a chaotic condition, a false flag event. And it is not in the plans of the elite right now for there to be a financial collapse between now and the next 2 or 3 months. Don't dare let up just because I'm saying that. But Mr. Obama could create something in the Middle East, could create some other horrible thing. This man is so erratic. He is so unpredictable. Even the elite are having a lot of trouble with him. And it's not their desire to get him back in.
All right. I do have a few things I want to ask you, but let's go back to the Federal Reserve. We don't have a lot of time, but why don't you see if you can summarize what you want us to know about the Federal Reserve and its current activities?